Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and just bringing you another episode of what we're into the Cobra. It's stormy outside, which is really cool. It's raining, and so you'll probably hear that in the background a little bit. But there's always a good question that comes up when you're considering buying a car like this, and should you buy it stock and modify it yourself, or should you buy it already modified? And so there's two arguments and two sides to that. On one hand, you're gonna potentially save a lot of money if somebody else has invested a lot into the car, because you don't always get that back. But then you have the risk that maybe the parts were not installed correctly, or once they were installed, perhaps they really put the car to work using those modifications. And so for that reason, you'll see Terminators, for example, and they will sell for pretty much the same whether they're highly modified or if they're bone stock. So it's not always the case with a lot of cars, but with Terminators especially, if they are bone stock, a lot of people will still pay the same amount as a modded one. So interesting concept there. And I bring that up because I have the sheet here, just like we had done over here on the Mach 1 just a minute ago on the other video, if you didn't see that. And so I basically have the total cost of the car. This is actually going to be broken into two sections though, where the top section is what the previous owner had done on the car, and then the bottom is what I've put into it, and then the total cost. So we'll go ahead and go through this. The thing is, when I first saw this car, it was immaculate, beautiful condition. Being modified, that's where you start to worry a little bit, because you're not sure how hard they've driven the car, but I was able to see it had the stock IRS, stock input shaft, a few things on it where I just knew that the car hadn't been beaten on, especially talking to the driver or the owner of it. So with that said, there's a lot of nice modifications to the car. Some things I would have done, some things maybe I would have done a little differently, and some things that I did change. So we'll go ahead and go through that list. So first off, right here on the top, this is the big ticket, is that it has a Whipple supercharger on it. This is the 2.3 liter Whipple supercharger, and it's a good one. It does a good job. The car makes about 600 horsepower to the wheels, and personally I probably would have done a 2.9 at the time, but anyway, as newer superchargers are coming out and they're a little bit better and everything, it's not that big of a deal. You know, for future upgrading. So anyway, we'll go down the list here. I paid $23,000 for this car back in 2013, and that was a pretty good deal. They were more towards the $26,000, especially if they had a upgraded twin screw supercharger on them. And the car had 39,000 miles on it at the time. It now has 42,000. Okay, so the Whipple was 3,600. The cold air intake was kind of a cheaper one. If you look at it, it's not going all the way up. It's just this bottom section going into the fender well. And so that was $150. It had some billet flow pulleys on it for $340. So that's all these little idlers. I changed that one, and so we'll get into that a little bit later. But anyway, he'd spent $340 on that. 60-pound fuel injectors, $300 or so is what those will run. And so 60 pounds is a pretty good number. I may have done 80 pound, but 60 is okay. And so now we're the Kenny Bell Booster Pump, which is in the trunk, $279. Predator tuner, $300. He had it tuned, that's about $300. The Diablo MAF extender, which is right here. Okay, so that just helps it so that your stock MAF doesn't peg. And so those are pretty expensive, $257. The Gord's heat exchanger, which is up front, so upgraded heat exchanger, which is a really nice touch there. That's another $300. The expansion tank, $289. That's for the supercharger. The cam covers, these blue covers, these are really nice because they're not just been painted or anything. These are powder coated from Ford. It was a Ford part, very similar to what was on the Ford GT supercar. So those are now not available anymore, but really nice touch to it. But you know, maybe I would have kept it stock. I don't know. They're nice. I don't know that I would have done them, so I don't mind having them. MGW short throw shifter inside, $180. DPR quadrant, $79. Okay, and then the IRS brace, which I now have right here, okay, because I had upgraded it, as you'll see, a little bit lower. But anyway, all in all, he spent about $6,800 in upgrades to this car. So that's $6,800 that I didn't have to spend. Assuming I would have done all of these things, and let's say I bought the car for $23,000, I'd be in the car easily $29,000, $30,000. Okay, so in that regard, it saved a little bit of money. So here's what I've done to it. I changed it to the powered by SVT coil covers right here. I like those ones a little bit better than the powered by Ford ones, even though I later found the powered by Ford ones were a Ford GT supercar thing only. I could have got a lot more money out of them. I only got like 75 bucks. Okay, I put the off-road H-pipe on it for $100. Bore the cat back. Screaming deal, 300 bucks. My friend sold it to me once he burned up the engine in his Terminator. Fluid, $50 for the differential and all that, which we'll get into. But I did the Ford Racing diff cover, and inside I did some gauges, and I'll show you a clip of those. But it's the AEM failsafe, the fuel pressure from Speed Hut, and the Aeroforce Interceptor. So it had the MGW short throw, as we said earlier, so that was a nice touch to already have that in here. The radio we're not going to mess with. Had some MGW parts as well on the bezel and the shift knob and everything. But as far as the gauges, it had this, it didn't have a gauge in it. So I had put in this AEM failsafe here, and I have videos on that if you want to see it. Very good gauge. I did a Hilton boost overlay. That was another 40 bucks or so. I didn't really list that on the chart. And the Aeroforce Interceptor here at the top. And the SOS gauge pod too, which is about 200 bucks. My brother gave me. But anyway, the failsafe and then the fuel pressure gauge. So anyway, pretty basic on the inside. I had to do an intercooler pump, which is in the fender, and I have a video on that. And then I had sold the MagnaFlow X pipe that was on it, so I got 300 back, which pretty much paid for the cat back. And I also sold the cat back off this car for about 300, so it was pretty much a wash. Maybe made a little bit of money. And then registration, of course, was 1,400 bucks. Mickey Thompson ET Streets 400, and then the McMahon alternator with the big 3-wire upgrade, all that. I have videos on that I can put in the description. So that was about 580 bucks with the big 3 kit and all the hardware. So in the end, I put in another $38.46 into the car. And so basically the car has 10,131 of parts on it. And so that would have been a total cost, if you add all of everything up, $33,000 is what's into this car with his modifications and my modifications. But in the end, I only paid the $23,000, plus the $3,800. So probably somewhere around $28,000. So anyway, that's where it is. Ooh, that's a loud burst. So anyway, that's where we are with the Terminator. And so, as you're going to buy and sell them, it's something to consider. And, sometimes, for example, as I've thought about this one, if I ever wanted to go to a newer updated supercharger, I could still get $2,500 out of that one. So, it's nice to have some aftermarket parts on it that you can switch around. And the headlights, I guess I could put in there. Those were like over $300 because these are the Ford OEM ones, brand new. I did take them out of this car and I put them into my Mach 1. So at any rate, that's just kind of a wash. I'm not really going to count too much. But anyway, that's what we're in it. Oh, one last thing, of course. The amber tail lights, which were about $400 is what I paid. And that's a pretty good deal for those with the harnesses. The car also already had the LFP throttle body, which is pretty nice, and they're a couple $100. And so I also put some money into some sandpaper, but mainly my time just to polish up this Borla catback, and it turned out really nice, Borla stingers. And then you can see that Ford Racing diff cover up in there now. I did a full install on that I can show you. And so that's why I have the diff cover brace that I can sell. Anyway, that's the Cobra. Go ahead and put in the comments what you think, any comments that you have, and your thoughts maybe as you're thinking about buying cars or if you have one already. Thanks, guys. So if you're new to the channel, I want to invite you to subscribe. We're
just past 24,000 subscribers and almost 900 videos, so doing pretty well here, and go check out all the other videos I've done. Thanks, guys.